I am going to begin to read to you now from the book by Ken Carey called The Starseed Transmissions. And before I do begin an excerpt from that book, I want to give you this little word of caution or advice, whatever you might want to call it. Some of the things I will say will seem so far-flung and so far-fetched that some people will have a hard time dealing with it. And some people it will resonate with and they'll find no problem at all. And some people, and myself as one, who am reading this, I'm not sure about all of this. But what I do when I'm not sure is I realize that I don't have to have a yes or no, I agree or I don't agree, opinion of everything I read. Some things I read it, and then it's like as if I put it in a box, put the thoughts in a box, put it on a high shelf in the top of a closet in my mind, and if I need to get them down later on and look at it again, well, it's there. I just sort of file it away as something to think about when other pieces of the puzzle come together. I can just pull that right down. I have lots of boxes on that high shelf of my mind. Some of them, the boxes labeled, get rid of this as quick as you can, rule it out completely. Because I have watched so many videos of doom and gloom scenarios about the shift that is coming upon our earth. And I don't believe a whole lot of them. I don't really watch a whole lot of them because they tend to create anger and frustration and hate. And so I've got a box for them too, called Get Rid of It As Soon As You Feasibly Can. So what I'm saying is what I will be reading now, it's very good information to have, because if we live through this shift that is going to change the way things are in our world, this is good information to know. It might even be vital information to know to keep us sane throughout the duration of it. Because when you know ahead of time some things that will allay your fears, you can go through something a whole lot better. And you can be there to help others that get into fear by letting them know what you think is going on. So in that way, I wish you to listen to this and not make any judgments until you've heard the whole thing. I'm not going to read but a couple of chapters of this book, but you will see it is very to the point about the shift that is going to change things in our world. So I will begin. The shadow of future creation. Since the first breath of God at the beginning of all the worlds, it was preordained that creation would exist within a rhythm of expansion and contraction. Eventually, there would come a time when the physical universe would stop expanding and begin to contract. The Hindus refer to this process as the inbreathing and the outbreathing of Brahma, the process through which God breathes out all of creation and then breathes it all back in again. At this point in linear time, we are very close to the middle of the cycle, soon to reach the exact midpoint between the out-breath and the in-breath of God. The universe began to reach this midpoint as unicellular organisms were emerging on the earth. But the exact midpoint is yet to be attained. It will coincide with what has come to be called the second coming of Christ. When any vibrational system reverses the momentum of its direction, as a pendulum does at the uppermost point of its swing, there is a moment of complete rest before it resumes its movement in the opposite direction. Since rest, or the total cessation of movement, constitutes the opposite of time, there is, at the precise moment of its occurrence, a micro-interval of non-time, a moment of eternity. This is the same interval of non-time that occurs many times each second as the atoms of the physical world vibrate back and forth. This is an opening into the Nogwal, a doorway into the presence from which all life energy springs. What happens when a universe stops expanding and begins contracting? What happens when an entire cosmos reaches the exact point of directional change and comes to a moment of absolute rest? You will have the opportunity to see for yourself very soon, for this event lies just before you in linear time. It will provide an opening for the emergence of something incomprehensible. Before we touch upon the nature of this occurrence and its implications for human beings, let us consider, however briefly, something of your nature as you existed prior to the fall. The entire biological history of this planet has been but the shadow cast in matter by your approach. It is the way that rocks and water and air have begun to respond to our presence. For you are life itself. You are that which lies beyond all duality, beyond all materializing tendencies, beyond all restraints of time and space. Your consciousness is both infinite and eternal. It can dwell in the limitations of matter and proceed through whatever filtering systems you so choose. But in healthy function, it is not bound or limited by those systems. Rather, it uses them as instruments of perception, exploration, and adventure. Outside of time and space, you are one with the Creator, the all that is, the Source. But when your consciousness moves within the context of a manifest universe, you become the Son, the Christ. In essence, you are the relationship between spirit and matter, the mediator, the bridge, the means through which the Creator relates to creation. You are life as it relates to planet Earth, eternity as it relates to time, the infinite as it relates to the finite. Though you presently experience yourself as a separate and fragmented species, you are in fact a single unified being, sharing the full consciousness of the Creator. You are brought into living, focused expression when you are in sight of creation by the manner in which time and space, matter and energy, sea and stone react to your presence. As the Christ, as the only begotten consciousness of the Father, you have been given a number of remarkable qualities. You are able to expand and contract in accordance with the focus of your attention. You are large enough to encompass all of creation, yet small enough to climb inside. Your Father Creator also premeets creation, but in a different way. In His vastness, He surrounds creation. His being saturates the physical universe, all the stars, the sun, the planets in your solar system, the distant galaxies. But He relies on you for His focus. You are His specific attention. As the focus of the Creator's attention, you have been roaming around inside of creation for billions of years, expanding and contracting, drifting in and out of this galaxy, this star system, that star system. Everywhere you go, you see the matter that your Father has created. You observe the many wonderful forms it takes, the mighty suns, the red giants, the white dwarfs, the vast spiraling galaxies, the quasars, the black holes, the white holes. You watch the incredible contortions of time and space that take place in the various gravitational fields you pass through. You note the planets, moons, and asteroids and comets circling within each star system you visit. You drift around the Father's representative, the Father's attention, and you enjoy the worlds that have been brought into being. But all these worlds are physical. They are all made of matter. They are made of the bonded energy attention of the Father. They have a certain substance, a certain solidity that you, as spirit, lack. You realize that this is their limitation. You realize they are defined and specified in ways that you are not defined and specified. Yet something about them intrigues you. By and by, you get an idea. You begin to wonder if you might not just possibly, somehow or another, clothe yourself in matter and construct for yourself a physical body that you could then travel around in, perceiving matter from the same perspective with which matter perceives herself. The ideal contains one paradox after another, yet something about it keeps you wondering. It puzzles you, and you love puzzles. You keep mulling it over as the eons roll by, trying to figure out some way to make it work. Until this point, there was no biological life in the universe. The rocks had a limited consciousness, but it was not responsive to the intent of your spirit. In solid, liquid, or gaseous states, matter was created and defined by your Father, behaved quite predictably, according to fundamental physical principles, unhampered with until that time. Throughout your travels in the physical universe, you had always kept your consciousness separate from the matter you observed. At the time you hit upon this plan, however, all that changed. You looked around you until you found a suitable planet for what you had in mind, not too hot, not too cold, situated within a stable young star system. You then focused your attention and your vibrational body in an entirely new way, an open way, a self-sacrificing way, a very powerful, loving way. Gently, slowly, you began to approach the planet. As the outermost edges of your vibrational field touched the waters of the planet, particles of previously inert matter began gently vibrating to the rhythms of your being, aligning themselves with the energy patterns found on the periphery of your awareness. There on the Precambrian ocean floors, they began combining to form the first cells, the first minute containers for your consciousness. In your new orientation with your new form of attention, in a gesture of infinite love to this planet, you began offering your consciousness on the time-space cross of material reality. You allowed your consciousness to clothe itself in the limitations of physical substance, accepting its restrictions. You allowed the atoms and molecules that were forming the first cells to come to life with your consciousness along the lines of your own vibrational field. At the same time that you allowed your consciousness to become clothed with particles that had been subject to the laws of the materializing process, you taught the matter of earth to rise up in a joyful dance with your spirit. As you drew ever nearer to the planet, the life forms that were taking shape began to contain more and more of your own awareness. You relaxed, opened yourself, and gave. You impregnated the earth with your life, with our very being. You looked out of many eyes and heard with many ears. Before incarnation, you were single. You drew identity from the totality of the relationship between Creator and creation. You were the Christ, fully conscious and alert, aware of yourself, unified, integrated. You realized that to accomplish incarnation, you would have to allow at least a portion of your identity to come to rest among the creatures you were bringing to life. Each of these would possess a type of hologrammatic consciousness that rightly thought of itself as both part and whole simultaneously. However, the presence of this consciousness could only be a certainty after the incarnation process was complete. During your actual surfacing through the substance of earth, there was a possibility that certain of the creatures might become self-active. Therefore, there had to be a means of regulating your disintegration from without. You wanted a part of you observing the whole process.